Today we have the honor of having Marc Ganzi joining us from down in Florida, where he's headquartered. And Marc has been a long-standing supporter of PTC, but also probably one of the great thinkers, investors, leaders in our industry, and a terrific honor to have him on our program. 2 years ago, he keynoted the PTC and gave us some really good insights about a lot of things that actually have now come to fruition across the industry. So always a great opportunity to talk to Marc and hear what he sees going on in the world.
There's a lot happening in our world as we transition from enabling, native cloud, public cloud, and private cloud workloads to moving to these big based, language-based models, and ultimately to generative AI. We're in an infrastructure moment that is like nothing I've seen, Bill, in my 30 years of doing this and building infrastructure. I think it's a really unique moment, and it's such at a scale and scope that sometimes you got to step back off the edge and go, okay, what's really going on here? And when you hear, we used to get excited if there was $100 million greenfield project to build. And today, if it's not $1 billion, it's a small project. So the scale and the scope of what AI is doing to our sector is like nothing we've ever seen in your career or my career, Bill, right? I mean, this is a major, major moment in time. And you and I get to sit front row, as does our industry, because we're sort of we're the tip of the spear, right? We're the picks and the shovels. And so it's been incredibly busy, and it's not just busy in data centers, right? Everyone's like, oh, it's data centers, data centers. I'm like, no, it isn't. You're missing the point. It's a moment for the ecosystem. And so it's about connectivity. It's about mobile edge. It's going to be about generative AI to the device. It's going to be generative AI to IoT networks, to factories, to enterprise, to commerce. And there's so many simulations you can think through, but this is a big moment for our sector, and we can't miss, right? And all of this is against, an environment where the planet is stressed. Our resources are stressed. Water, CO2, power, renewables, grids, microgrids, backup batteries. The complexity of what we're faced with today is very different than it was a decade ago.
Do you think this is finally the reviving point that brings the fiber back and sort of, because you think about fiber assets have sort of lagged behind, if you just look at a pure EBITDA multiple of a fiber company versus a data center company, they're not seen as a hot investment of the day, but they're so critical to the whole ecosystem that, and they were, if you think about it, 20 years ago, you had 20 times EBITDA, fiber companies in 2004, 2005, and so it's, the question is, will we get back there to that point where the fiber is equally valued in the whole ecosystem? What's your thoughts?
It never will be, right? It's kind of the sort of forgotten stepchild of the sector largely because of the characteristics, right? Fiber doesn't have the stickiness that a really good data center has or a really good cell tower has. It just never will, because you've got incumbents, you've got tier 2 players, you've got cable, you've got dark fiber providers. And so that ecosystem is different, right? There's 6 different business models packed into fiber. Long haul fiber, wholesale fiber, suboceanic cables, metro rings, enterprise, fiber backbone to the premises, fiber to the home, cable to the home. There's so many different ways to play the fiber sector. It's not as discrete as a player as towers and as small cells and as data centers. And so the other thing is just the cash flows are more volatile, Bill. These customers don't sign 15, 20, 25-year commitments. And look, the fiber business will always suffer from one key element: competition. And your ability to overbuild a network is your risk every day. And so that's not the same in building a great data center or a great tower. So it'll always suffer from the stickiness of its exclusivity. And I think what people really like about towers is when you build a great tower, Bill, you can close the zoning door behind you. You get a great will serve letter with like 400 megawatts and you can close the power grid behind you. So there's all these ways to create stickiness and barriers to entry. Fiber doesn't have it. It never has. Look at some of the great suboceanic cable routes. Somebody builds a great route with 8 pairs and they load it up with 3 customers. 2 years later, someone can build a redundant route right on top of it. So there's just a series of limitations to fiber, and it's important. Don't make a mistake. It's the reason why we've already made 2 investments this year in fiber, is because we know it's the capillaries. It's the capillaries that binds all of this infrastructure, Bill. It's really important. It's super important. Don't sleep on fiber. Just, we got to be realistic about it, right? At the end of the day.
If the other thing that's going to be interesting, do you think the power industry kind of sneaks in alongside is another one of these sort of interesting sideline industries in the digital infrastructure space that becomes a critical piece of, just because I look at, shifting gears to the data center space, there's sort of been a step change in demand, and now people are looking around the planet trying to figure out, okay, where do I find a gigawatt of power? It's funny when you start to think about, because a lot of the places where the power is not necessarily where network exists today, right? And so you've got some sort of, and most of the data centers were always built around eyeballs and cloud, and now you're saying, okay, now I need really cheap green power somewhere, right?
I think people forget the power sector has been in digital infrastructure for like 25 years. I think there's a reason why you haven't seen any of the utilities make a big data center investment yet. It's a lot of capital. It's very capital intensive. And their early shots over the bow haven't succeeded because they're thinking it's towers and fiber. And they think they can put it anywhere. The reality is, as you and I know, you cannot tell these hyperscale customers where to go build their AZ. They tell you where the AZ is. You don't tell them where the AZ is. So the power industry is trying to dictate terms to the data center sector and the hyperscalers, and it just hasn't gone well so far. The only deal that's been done is that Susquehanna power deal with Talon, which DOE is now reviewing and may undo it. So, the power industry is a fantastic partner to us. We're partners with every utility company in the U.S. We have over 150 data centers, and so we have to work with utilities, and they are great partners. They're very good at what they do, and I think them crossing into data centers is an operational complexity that I think they just won't take. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean they can't do JVs. It can't mean that you can't partner with them in microgrids and alternative transmission infrastructure. There's a bunch of things that we're doing with utilities that's a little bit off the piste, so to speak. And I'm excited to do it because I think there's going to be, tremendous opportunities in the future with this stuff.
Well, all right, let's switch gears. One more quick question before I let you go back to having your fun there in Florida. Let's talk about AI. One of the things that you missed our DC event, but Vince Cerf talked about something that was very interesting. He talked about the fact that he thought AI was largely a supply side application, which means that basically it helps reduce cost and makes efficiencies for businesses, but wasn't necessarily a revenue generator. And it's sort of, what's your thoughts on AI? You philosophically see it that same way, or do you think it's different?
It's not so much that I see it differently. I think I have perhaps a fresh perspective because we're in a 50-50 joint venture with Intel called Articulate. And so what Articulate does is it creates generative AI models and workflows for businesses. And so we take 80% of their private data, because really AI is an output of a certain currency, is how I look at it. And the currency is data. And every big company, Bill, controls their data. And so what we're doing at Articulate is we work with a big Fortune 500 customer. We know what they're trying to accomplish from an application perspective. We know they're trying to tie it into either some workflow or Salesforce or some CRM tool. And we're using 80% of their proprietary data. We're building that language model for them. We run it for them. And then we're using about 20% public cloud data to supplement it to get to that right artificial result, which you hit the nail on the head, which is either an efficiency or allows them to do more prospecting, allows them, we're in factories right now, speeding up processes. All I know is Articulate's bookings are 3x above budget this year. And so we're crushing it, whether it's bookings, cycle times, delivery to a customer, whatever it is. Every corporate user, Bill, has a metric where they define success. Generative AI is about taking that metric, flipping it on its side and saying, okay, how can I make that metric 20% better, 30% better? Because if I can do, my bottom line goes to this. That's generative AI. Today, not tomorrow, but today, that's where the table stakes are. You want to make money in generative AI, you figure out how to love your client, get close to your client, understand how to break their data down, rebuild it up, and weaponize it. That's how you do it. That's how you make money in generative AI. Today, you and I'll sit down a year from now and we'll probably redefine it.
Well, thanks, Mark, and appreciate you taking some time out of your evening tonight, and looking forward to seeing you hopefully in Hawaii in a month or two. So thanks again for coming out with us on digging into the future with PTC, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks again.
Bill. See you in Hawaii. Take care.